The great failed romances of the 20th century. First you start laughing, then you cry. The great failed romances of the 20th century. Love may be a sham, but we still gotta try.
Welcome to the Great Failed Romances of the 20th Century. I'm singer, songwriter, and historian Teddy Gray.
And I've been Sam Kaufman. I'm changing my identity after the show ends. So Teddy, we have one couple left on the docket. Who could it be?
For our grand finale, today we'll be discussing the romance between Laurence Olivier and Vivien Leigh.
What? You promised me we'd do Abraham Lincoln and John Wilkes Booth. Sic semper tyrannis!
Oh, dude, come on.
Oh, what? Too soon? Look, they made it this far. They can handle it.
Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier first met in 1936 while Vivien was starring in the play The Mask of Virtue in London. After stopping by backstage to congratulate the young actress on a wonderful performance, Laurence planted the seeds for a relationship between the two that would dominate their lives for the next 30 years.
We've covered enough romances at this point to be wary of the idea of love at first sight, but in the case of these two, there seems to be no other way to put it. It's reported that after meeting Laurence, Vivien said to her friend, "That's the man I'm going to marry," despite her already being married at the time. Her husband, who was sitting on the other side of her, was like, "Can you not?"
One thing the two actors had in common is that they were both in mutually unhappy marriages that they secretly longed to free themselves of. Olivier was married to actress Jill Esmond, though he would later confess that he often felt as if he settled for her, out of fear of not being able to do any better.
And you couldn't do much better than Vivien Leigh in 1936. So, as often is the way in these tales, the two threw caution to the wind, said, "Fuck it, we're beautiful," and the affair began.
Later speaking on the affair, Laurence said, "I couldn't help myself with Vivien. No man could. I hated myself for cheating on Jill, but then I had cheated on her before, but this was something different. This wasn't just out of lust."
He followed this quote with, "Wait, why are you writing this down? I thought we were just hanging as bros. Please stop writing this down. My wife reads your blog. Oh no, what have I done?"
Soon after they had met, Vivien and Laurence were cast as love interests in the 1937 film Fire Over England, a classic example of art imitating life. The next few years found the actors furthering their relationship, as well as their careers. Laurence appeared in the film Wuthering Heights, whereas Vivien gave a career-defining performance in Gone with the Wind, which Laurence had actually recommended her for.
Trouble had begun to brew, though, as Vivien was beginning to exhibit the first signs of a lifelong mental illness, and was developing a reputation of being difficult to work with. Still, her love for Laurence and her dedication to the craft kept her going, resulting in her performance as Scarlett O'Hara being one of the most acclaimed in all of cinema.
While apart on separate film sets, the two would write each other passionate, detailed love letters. Some of them show Laurence trying to pull Vivien out of her funks, and encouraging her not to be too hard on herself. In one, he wrote, "You have got to be damn smart to make a success of your career in pictures, which is essential for your self-respect. I am afraid you may become just boring. Never to me, but to yourself, and because of that, to others."
Helpful.
Finally, in 1940, the two divorced their spouses and were married. Up until then, they had kept their entanglement a secret to keep out of the tabloids, but now they were free to go public. In the same year, more good news came for the couple, when Vivien won an Oscar for her performance in Gone with the Wind.
The two were the toast of the town, and capitalized on their public profile by starring in films together, including 21 Days Later and That Hamilton Woman. Not long after, they returned to the stage to perform an ill-fated production of Romeo and Juliet, which flopped and cost the couple tens of thousands.
Making it the second worst adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, right after Baz Luhrmann's horrendous 1996 disaster, which of course leaves Romeo and Juliet unchallenged at the top.
Unbeknownst to themselves at the time, Vivien and Laurence starring as doomed lovers was all too fitting. From here on out, their relationship began to grow more complicated and difficult.
While filming Caesar and Cleopatra in 1945, Vivien suffered a miscarriage, which sent her into a deep depression, and kick-started a series of bipolar disorder breakdowns that would trouble her for the rest of her life.
These meltdowns would often follow a similar pattern. Days of hyperactivity, followed by a deep depression, shivering fits, and swear-filled tirades. Often after getting through one, Vivien would barely remember what she had said or done over the past few days, and would be mortified when she found out.
As for Laurence, he was doing great! Touring the country in various Shakespeare productions, and even being knighted in Buckingham, Lawrence's career was soaring, contrasting with Vivien, who was flailing. Struggling to stay afloat, the two embarked on a 6-month tour of Australia and New Zealand to perform and fundraise for the theater.
Rather than rekindling their struggling marriage, the tour drove the two further apart than ever before. Vivien's erratic behavior led to her missing many performances, resulting in numerous fights with her husband, who found it difficult to manage her mood swings. They would slap each other backstage and scream at one another in front of onlookers. It was getting messy. Laurence later said that he felt he truly lost Vivien in Australia.
I can relate, because I lost my virginity in Australia. Either his name was Joey or he was a Joey. That's a joke for all the kangaroo enthusiasts out there. You get it.
Yeah, keep doubling down.
No, you see, because Joey is a baby kangaroo.
As her marriage was falling apart, Vivien took the other role that she would be most remembered for, Blanche in A Streetcar Named Desire. Playing a woman who was slowly slipping into madness, the character closely resembled Vivien's ongoing struggles with mental illness.
In spite of, or because of these parallels, Vivien's performance was again acclaimed for its authenticity and rawness. She paid a price for this, though, later claiming that she felt the role of Blanche was the one that truly tipped her into madness.
To make matters worse for Vivien's mental state, this would be the end of her receiving rave reviews, with subsequent performances being panned by critics, and making her increasingly afraid of failure and terrified of criticism.
Around this time, the couple began to stray from each other romantically, beginning to indulge in affairs. While it's unknown who was the first to cheat, many believe that it was Vivien, who had an affair with actor Peter Finch in 1953, not long after she had suffered a nervous breakdown. Her erratic mental state would often lead to her ending up in bed with strangers as well, and while Laurence was made aware of the infidelities, he was not quite ready to give up on their marriage.
The two continued to appear on stage together, but their performances suffered, showcasing a couple whose love had faded over time, as well as their passion for one another. In 1956, Vivien suffered another miscarriage, which led to another extended period of depression.
Finally, the two began to accept that the marriage was over. Vivien began seeing actor Jack Merivale, with Lawrence's approval, and Laurence began an affair with actress Joan Plowright. I bet he was plowing her right. Sorry, folks, I'm just trying to keep the morale up. This is kind of a bleak one.
After divorcing Laurence, Vivien's health never truly recovered, and she began to threaten suicide and have more episodes and fits than ever before. Seeing Laurence marry and start a family with Joan Plowright couldn't have helped either. Although her depression continued to worsen, she did manage to complete one final film, 1965's Ship of Fools. Despite her fragile mental state making production especially difficult, her performance won rave reviews, a testament to her enduring talent as an actress.
2 years later, while struggling with tuberculosis, Vivien tragically died in the middle of the night after her lungs filled with liquid, causing her to collapse onto the floor. She was 53 years old. Olivier helped her family make funeral arrangements once he received the news, and arranged for the West End to extinguish their marquee lights for the night in honor of the late actress.
Despite their divorce, the two had kept in touch in their final years, continuing their letter writing until the very end. In one, Vivien wrote to Laurence, speaking on their divorce, "You did nobly and bravely and beautifully, and I am very sorry that it must have been such hell for you." In Lawrence's final letter to Vivien, which had been written only weeks before her death, he signed it, "Sincerest love, darling, your Larry."
Shortly before Olivier's death in 1989, at the age of 82, it's reported that he was found watching a film starring Vivien Leigh and himself, with tears in his eyes, saying repeatedly, This was love."
It's just so beautiful. Oh.
All right, Sam, you want to pull it together?
It's our last episode, you heartless son of a bitch. Can we let one moment linger? And it's lingered. Okay, Teddy, for the last time, why don't you tell us about your silly little song?
This song is called Sorry I'm Here, and it's written from the perspective of Vivien Leigh at the end of her decades-long relationship with Laurence. Struggling both with her mental health and the pain of losing her lover, Vivien contemplates giving in completely to the depression that threatens to overtake her. She wonders if a love that ends in tragedy was worth experiencing at all, before finally coming to the conclusion that something that lasted for 30 years cannot be considered a failure. In the album's penultimate moment, Vivien cries out that despite the heartbreak and the pain, she doesn't regret a moment of what she's experienced, and that she's not sorry she's here.
This woman is known to the world. Look closely. Do you recognize her? Listen to her story, then condemn her, if you can.
Breathe in, don't just break down, hold tight, let the air out. Your true love has walked out the door. Just another scandal, it's nothing he can't handle, but me, I may collapse to the floor. Spy my luminary, said that's the man I'll marry. They're back, stage of heat in my call. It was founded on lies, tears our spouses both cry. Now it's time to pay for it all. And there goes another marriage, since we're both to blame. But I never once lied in my heart, could you tell me the same? Was I too much to manage, was it all for your career? At times I wish to die or disappear, but I'm not sorry I'm here. I'm not sorry I'm here. Technicolor gaslight, control, mirroring light. Bob Neal, Blanche's living through me. When the curtain falls to thunder, is applause, it always comes after tragedy. And now the second act's unfolding, through heartbreak and neglect. Rivalries, the pregnancies, it ends how you'd expect. But it can't be a failure if it's lasted 30 years. Surrender to the script or persevere. I'm not sorry I'm here. I'm not sorry I'm here. And everything's easy when you don't care, but you had to make me care about you. We gave it all to feed the grandeur of our dreams. Guess that's the price of youth. Our love may have mutated, but our time wasn't wasted. It matters not how our story ends. The only failed romances are the squandered chances, ones that never even began. Stars will last forever on the silver screen. Scandalous and gloriously real in every scene. Does it make it all worth it if they'll tell our tale for years? Signs point to the ending being near, but I'm not sorry I'm here. I'm not sorry I'm here. I'm not sorry I'm here. I'm not sorry I'm here.
All right, we good? Is that a wrap? Done for the day? Nice. I thought that went really well. Oh, and my agent let me know she got the payment. We're all good there, so I'm gonna go.
Wait, you're leaving?
Yeah, my boyfriend's expecting me at home.
Oh, no, that makes sense. I just thought that...
What, you thought I was just gonna hang out here?
Well, I mean, there's still other great failed romances that we could talk about. Hank Williams and Audrey Shepard, Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio, Hitler and Eva Braun.
Teddy, we've been over this. Hitler and Eva Braun were one of the greatest love stories of all time, but they technically don't qualify as a failed romance because they were still together when they died.
I know, I don't really have anything else to do.
I mean, that's not really my problem, so I'm gonna go.
That's it? You're just gonna leave with that?
Look, dude, you can either keep obsessing over the great failed romances of the 20th century, or you can make one of your own. I mean, in the 21st century, obviously. Go make out on top of a car, fall into a fountain, sing happy birthday to somebody really hornily, I don't know. Are you gonna keep telling other people's stories for the rest of your life, or do you want others to tell yours?
I don't know.
That's your problem, Teddy. You'd rather ponder the past than live in the present. Alright, look, I really gotta go. Tonight's roleplay night with the boyfriend, and I gotta buy a Wolfman mask. I hear it's a full moon tonight, if you know what I mean. Awoo! See you next album, buddy.
I guess I should say something.
I first started this project just as quarantine was beginning, and it was becoming clear that we'd have more time on our hands than we initially thought. It began as a songwriting exercise and a history project to occupy my time and energy, and the songs all being about relationships that took place in the 20th century allowed me a nice break from the current bleak reality of the 21st. I try to make my escapism productive. At the time I was writing it, I didn't really have any sort of grand statement to make about celebrity culture or failed relationships. I just found that the subject matter made for interesting songs. I've always found it fascinating how as years go by, sometimes the work by artists, actors, or writers almost becomes secondary to the story of their personal life. In this way, the artists themselves become the art. They go from creating myths to becoming one. Whether this is a good or bad thing is open to interpretation, and I go back and forth on how I feel about it personally. I've come to many different conclusions in many different songs, and none of them seem like the definitive take, but I think I'm okay with that. I'm much more interested in asking questions than forcing answers, and one of the main questions I had while working on this project was, why are so many of the greatest love stories the ones that end in tragedy? If you look throughout history at the love stories that have transcended generations, you won't find a lot of happy endings. It seems that romanticism and fatalism share a lot of common ground. Whether a world-famous celebrity or some nobody from nowhere, very few of us manage to love someone and come out unscathed. And yet we do it anyway. That's ultimately why I think we continue to be fascinated with failed romances and the tragic love stories that live on in infamy, because we can so easily see ourselves in them. The failed romances I wrote about on this album are experiences that I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy, and yet at the same time, I hope that we're all lucky enough to experience our own.
This has been the great failed romances of the 20th century. And unfortunately, now the time has come for us to break up. It's not you, it's me.
It pains me to leave your side or to say farewell, so I canceled our plans, got the weekend all to ourselves. Sure, I got ambition, but I could just give up that, for sleeping in on the weekends with you as we both get fat. And if you feel you sell your soul, you probably will, my friend. But if your fear is getting old, well, don't think too far ahead. I can't enjoy good company, I like when it's just you and me. They say we're wasting our lives, but it never really mattered to me. remember the conversation we had last night, when you pretended everything I said was right, and I did the same, but you didn't mind my deceit. Let's never challenge each other on any of our beliefs. And if you feel you sold your soul, don't worry about that yet. There's an appeal to growing old, minus the fear of death. I can't enjoy good company, I like when it's just you and me. I hear the world is a mess, but it never really mattered to me. And if you feel we sold our souls, you probably have my friend. And I can feel us growing old, outgrowing our fear of death. I can't enjoy good company, I like when it's just you and me. So why would I change the world, dear? You're the only thing that matters to me. The great failed romances of the 20th century. First you start laughing, then you cry. The great failed romances of the 20th century. Love may be a sham, but we still gotta try.